Okay, welcome back to Freaky Fridays. Yeah, I know we've been gone for a while, but I was sick. So, I am back. Today we are we're going to talk about the Whaley house in San Diego, California, and also some other stuff. Okay. So, Thomas Whaley, who was born October 5th, 1823 in New York, took over his father's successful business and then left New York on January 4th, 1849. He went to San Francisco during the gold rush, where he engaged in business. He later on went to San Diego in September of 1851. 2 years later, went back to New York, married Anna Eloise, I don't know, Delaunay on August 14, 1853. Together, they returned to California in San Diego, California on December 7th, 1853. August 22nd, 1857, they moved into their house known as the Whaley House. They had 6 children: Francis, Francis Hinton, December 28, 1854, Thomas Whaley Jr., August 18th, 1856, Anna Amelia, June 27th, 1858, George Hay Ringgold, November 5th, 1860, Violet Eloise, October 14, 1862, and Karina Lillian, September 4th, 1864. The first kid, Francis, was named after a business partner. Thomas Whaley Jr. suffered from scarlet fever at 18 months and died on January 29th, 1858. After the death of baby Thomas, the lost by fire of their store, Thomas and Anna moved to San Francisco in January of 1859. Then moved back to San Diego in the summer of 1868. Fixed up the old Whaley house. Anna and the rest of the family arrived back home to San Diego on December 12th of 1868. On January 5th, 1882, Violet Eloise and Whaley and Anna Amelia Whaley were both married in San Diego. Violet married George T. Birchley. I don't know how to say that. Anna Amelia wed her first cousin John T. Whaley. 2 weeks into Violet's marriage, as the couple was traveling back on their honeymoon, she woke one morning to find her husband gone. As it turned out, was a con artist, and her and her family learned he only married her because he thought he could get money out of the marriage. When she was shunned by polite society upon returning home, not only without her husband, but also unchaperoned, something proper ladies simply did not do in the late 19th century Victorian society. Their divorce was finalized approximately a year later. Violet never recovered from the public humiliation and betrayal, and suffered from depression. She later on committed suicide by shooting herself in the chest with Thomas's .32 caliber on August 8, 1885. She was 22 years. Her suicide notes read, "Mad from life, history swift to death, mysteries. Glad to be hurled anywhere out of this world. Whaley." The suicide note is a passage from Bridge of Sighs, a poem by Thomas Hood. This poem is also offered up by Edgar Allan Poe. Okay. Corinne Lillian was engaged at the time of her sister's death, but her fiance broke off the engagement due to the scandal that raised. After these tragic events, Thomas Whaley built a single-story frame home for his family, 933 State Street in downtown San Diego, and the family moved into the new residence, leaving the Whaley house vacant for over 2 decades. Francis married Susan E. Murray in Mendocino, California on December 31st, 1888. On December 14, 1890, Thomas Whaley died due to ill health at the State Street address. Anna Amelia Whaley died in Modesto, California, December 12, 1905. The Whaley house remained vacant, fell into disrepair in the late 1909. Francis Whaley undertook the restoration of the building, turned the home into a tourist attraction where he posted signs promoting its history and entered visitors with his guitar. Anna Whaley, Thomas's widow, Corinne Lillian, Francis, and George all lived in the old Whaley house in 1912. February 24th, 1913. Anna died at 80 years of age. A year later, Frances Whaley died on November 19, 1914. George Whaley died on January 5th, 1928 in San Diego. Corinne Lillian Whaley continued resident in the house until her death in 1953. The Whaley house remained well known as a haunted house. It is said that the guests and the staff from time to time will catch a glimpse of a ghost. The Whaley house is located in the Old Town neighborhood of San Diego. The historic house opened a museum May 25th, 1960. Okay. The two-story Greek Revival house was designed by Thomas Whaley himself. Construction began on May 6, 1856. Completed in 1857. And the house was more than $10,000. And it was made from bricks created in Whaley's back brickyard on Kong Street. Whaley's new house was known as the finest in Southern California. The house was furnished with rosewood furniture, Brussels carpets, and damask drapes, and was considered a mansion for its time. It was also San Diego's first commercial theater, the county courthouse, and a general store. October 1868, an upstairs family bedroom was converted into a theater after Thomas Whaley rented the room out to the Tana Troupe, a local theater troupe traveling through San Diego at the time. The operator of the theater, Thomas Tanner, died just 17 days after opening. His troupe had disbanded by the end of January 1869. Whaley House also served as the county courthouse in 1869. For $65 a month, the county of San Diego leased the courtroom and 3 of the upstairs bedrooms. It was also a general store. In the 1860s and 1870s, the house became a focal point of battle between Old Town residents and New Town. Whaley House has frequently been cited as haunted based on strange noises or sights. Life magazine called it the most haunted house in America. After Whaley family moved in, they told San Diego Union they heard heavy footsteps they believe to be the ghost of James Yankee Jim Robinson, who earlier had been hanged on the property for stealing a boat. Some people have reported seeing apparitions of Thomas Whaley or Anna Whaley. The last weekend of every month, the Whaley House Museum offers a late night ghost hunting. Additional tours. Yeah, I've never been here. I mean, I'm from California, but I've never been to this place. Would like to go someday. Yeah, this house has been in different things, been featured in a variety of paranormal or science fiction shows. Oh yeah, and then in 2012, Asylum Film Studio made a movie called The Haunting of Whaley House. So, I don't know. I mean, if anyone's been there and seen anything, let me know. But it could be interesting to go there. I mean, I would go there, do a tour. It's not that much. It's like $8, and then a little bit more for adults. $8 during the day, and then for the night tours, it's a little bit more. So, and we'll start also. I might start playing games while I talk about this stuff too. I have a few games I can play. Scary game. Okay. And then I've been also been reading Letsnotmeet stories and NoSleep, and I'm gonna read a few of them. So enjoy. This is called Pumpkin's Friend. It's by Cosmic Outlets. I wasn't sure what to title this since I can't call it an IRL creepy story. What happened last night was far more than that. Terrifying, horrific, and traumatizing are a few words I use to summarize it better. So you need some context. You know, Pumpkin, my cat, right? Well, for the last few weeks, she had been acting very strange. Her mood was weird. She would walk through the house crying. I really had a moment of peace that she was always sitting on my lap. Now, this isn't completely out of the ordinary. She gets needy when she's not feeling well. Sometimes when she can feel a thunderstorm coming. She even comes over to keep me safe since I'm a big chicken. What's weird is that lately when she's sitting with me or crying around the house, she's always looking at something. It happens a lot more at night. Right after I turn off the TV, the only lights on in the house are a string of Christmas lights in our hallway. And my phone, while I keep myself entertained before bed. Pumpkin likes to cuddle up in the crook of my bent legs while I'm laying in bed. Occasionally, I feel her jerk her head up as if she's startled by something. Last night, I took the time to watch her for a bit after she jumped and realized she was following something around the room that I couldn't see. Her ears perked up. Her eyes were wide. She didn't seem scared, just curious. She turned her head from one side of the room to the other, followed something as it rose up and down in front of her, and stared intently at the darkest corner of the room behind the door for a few minutes. Eventually, whatever she saw disappeared because she rested her head down on the bed soon after. I didn't think much of this, though my anxiety was definitely alert and aware that something weird was going on. After all, I filled my head with horror on a constant basis and am usually quick to believe that the things my imagination come up with are paranormal. I did my best to calm myself down and went back to watching season 8 of Shameless on Netflix. Then it happened again, but this time Pumpkin raised herself up on her front paws. I could tell she was more invested in what phantom she could see. She meowed a bit, started to walk towards the edge of the bed, her head following whatever it was from the dark corner to the base of our bed. I then saw something I couldn't explain. A hand reached out from nowhere and pet Pumpkin across her back. I realized as she flexed her hindquarters around those mysterious fingers that she was comfortable with this thing. What's more horrifying is that this thing didn't have a body attached to the hand it used to pet my cat. The hand was small and had purple painted fingernails, almost like the hand of a child. I slapped a hand on to my husband's back and started breathing heavily as the small hand started scratching Pumpkin's ears. He didn't wake up, and I was left to curl up into a whimpering ball as close to the headboard as I could. And then I saw the faint outline of a small figure bringing contest to the disembodied hand. It was a little girl, just barely taller than the foot of our bed. She has to be 5 or 6 years old. She was dressed in a pink t-shirt and had short blonde ringlets surrounding her head in a bob. She looked at me, smiled, her frame encapsulated with wispy light. She leaned over to kiss my cat and rested her arm on the edge of the bed, getting more comfortable. I was frozen with fear. Something I had only imagined until now was happening before my eyes. She was just a sweet little girl who wanted to pet my cat, right? My mind filled itself with questions. Where had she come from? Was she a victim of something that just happened in this apartment? Was this just a disguise for something more sinister? She ignored me for a few minutes and focused her attention on Pumpkin, playing with her tail and giggling as the cat laid on her stomach and played with the girl's tiny hands. I sat in awe, watching this happen, allowing my brain to grow more curious and terrified. I even leaned forward a bit to get a better look at her. She had piercing green eyes that seemed to glow on their own, as if instructed by something I also couldn't see. The girl stopped petting Pumpkin and walked strode towards my bedroom door. As she did, she looked over at me with a smile that turned my stomach. Her eyes went black. In slow motion, her small, wispy frame grew darker, taller, and lanky in the light streaming in from the hallway. Its spindly hand reached the floor, and it had to duck to exit through the door frame. The thing's eyes didn't leave mine until it was out of view, but I knew it didn't have any plans to leave me alone. Pumpkin seemed satisfied with her play session and walked up to me, nuzzling her head into my shaking hand. I hugged her so close to me and cried. She purred contentedly and snuggled into my neck as I calmed down. I unscrewed the bottle of sleeping pills by my head. By the time they started working, she had laid down between my legs again, her head resting on my knees. My eyes grew heavy as the pills took over. My anxieties faded away. As my head hit the pillow, I felt Pumpkin jump yet again, but refused to open my eyes. Okay. Now we're going to read a Letsnotmeet story. 10 Years a Stalker by ariasagexx. It was the fall of 2007, and I was 15 living in New York. Sorry about the coughing. I was a competitive athlete in high school, the type who got up before school for workout and trained for long hours after. With recruiting season a year away, I was under tremendous pressure to perform in any sport, or perform in my sport, as well in the classroom. I was struggling to keep up in calculus at the time, so my mom suggested I get a tutor. She made an appointment with a teacher friend of hers who really knew his stuff. I'd been going to him regularly, probably 3 times a week for a month before I met Alex. Alex had the tutoring session after mine, and we crossed paths every week. It had never been more than a glance and a smile, as I was incredibly shy and terrified of boys. He was tall and blonde with piercing blue eyes, so naturally I thought he was cute. One day my tutor had to change his schedule and decided to book us together, as we were learning the same topics in calc. I was shocked and delighted when Alex started chatting with me afterward and asked for my phone number. I never had a boy pay attention to me in that way, and I was flattered that someone that cute wanted my number. Eventually, Alex and I began dating. Alex went to a Catholic school in another town, and because he lived in the same town as I did, he took the bus every morning from my school to his. This gave us most mornings together, and he was able to meet my friend. I was a little taken back when they didn't take to him like I did. They mentioned him seeming weird, and I got super defensive, but let it go. I realized that I'd been spending less time with them than I normally did and assumed that they were jealous that I had a boyfriend. As time went on, things got more serious. We started experimenting sexually, and eventually I lost my virginity to him in the back of his Ford Escape. That's when things began to change. While Alex and I always talked regularly, he started getting over the top about staying in contact with me. He would make me stay on the phone with him all hours of the night until eventually my mom started taking my phone before I went to bed. This relationship also started taking a toll on my athletic career. I was too tired to spend my extra time training and started skipping my practice to see him, driving 30 minutes each way to his school. Eventually, my friend sat me down and told me how unhealthy this relationship had become. I had isolated myself from them, and my entire free time was spent with him. At this point, I wanted so badly to end the relationship. I had fallen out of love with Alex, and college applications were approaching. I've been scouted by no less than 10 colleges, and my plan was to attend Brown, my dream school. Alex's obsession with our relationship had taken a huge toll on his grades. Brown wasn't going to be an option for him. I remember when I told him that. I was going where him that I where I was planning on going, and he freaked out, saying he would never get in there and begging me not to go. At the time, I was also recruited by the University of Illinois. Alice applied there in hopes that I would ditch Brown and go to Illinois with him. That was the final straw for me, and ended things for good with Alex, assuming that would be it. Because Alex would take the bus from my school to his every morning, I still had to see him. I remember walking into school past him and his classmate who took the bus with him, and some of his guy friends yelled slut and whore at me. Apparently he had spread a rumor that I cheated on him with a bunch of guys and then ended it with him. I ignored it till I started getting Facebook messages from random people at his school. I spent months getting nasty messages from guys at his school accusing me of having STDs and telling me I was going to get gangbanged by his friends. Eventually I had to delete my Facebook because it wouldn't stop. I think deleting my Facebook was what set off the stalker tendency for Alex. He wasn't able to see my face online, so he started calling nonstop, sending desperate AIM messages, telling me he loved me. While this was going on, I was the favorite to win the high school championship in my sport. I'd gone undefeated all season. Alex ended up showing up while I was competing for championship, and I saw him there. It shook me so bad I ended up losing the title. I was furious and heartbroken. I ended up picking up his call that came that night and screamed at him, telling him to never contact me again. That's when the threats began. I got a call a few nights later. I'm sorry about that. That's when the threats began. I got a call a few nights later from Alice. After he texted me, he had something important to tell me. Stupidly, I answered. He began to tell me how he was going to kill me. He was going to show up at my house when my parents were at work with a rope and a knife and make me suffer like I'd done to him. I started to cry, and he eventually went on to say he was going to get me before I went into school, because he knew exactly where I parked every morning, and my parents were never going to find me. At this point, I had decided to record what was being said. I had it taped on my phone. I hung up once I felt he said enough. The next morning, I went into school extra early, much earlier than I figured he'd be there. I showed my advisor the recording, who then called my mom. I remember the feeling a deep-rooted shame as my mom listened to the recording like I had done something to bring this on myself. My advisor was so alarmed by the recording, he advised me to go to the police. This day still feels surreal to me. My mom and I sat in the police station all day, explaining the story of my relationship with Alex and how it got to this point. The police then drove to his high school and arrested him while he was in class. The top on that day was when I went out to bring food back to the police station for my mom and I pulled into the station at the same time as the car holding Alex did. Saw him in handcuffs, and he did look like he wanted to kill me. Post arrest, I got a restraining order against Alex, and he was sent to a mental institution for a short while. He ended up breaking the RO on more than one occasion. I contacted the police, but they didn't think it was a cause to do anything. I think it's important to note that Alex's family was wealthy and had a name in the area, so it wouldn't have surprised me if that's why they brushed it under the rug. I ended up attending Brown, had to inform them of the RO and let them know that Alex should not be allowed on campus. It's been over 10 years since this happened, and I still continue to receive friend requests and phone calls from him on occasion. I recently moved across the country from where this occurred. I finally feel safe now that I'm far from where he lives, but anytime I get a blocked call or text from my number I don't know, a thought goes through my head that it's him. It's just safe to say this experience has completely changed who I let into my life and who I chose to date. Alex, let's not meet again. This is called... Oh, wait a minute. No, we're not doing this. Okay, this is called My Imaginary Friend Isn't So Imaginary. And it's by LRAT3CH33TAH666. And this is a NoSleep story. I snuck my laptop into the institution. It's not like it was hard. It was that hard. Even maximum security here is crap. I can escape anytime I want, but I have to be patient. I need to time things just right. After all, we have big plans to complete. While I'm waiting, why don't I explain why I'm here in the first place? The incident happened when I was about 10. Right from birth, I was different. Most babies cry when they are born. Me, no. I simply pushed my way out into the world and looked around. In fact, I never cried. Never screamed when I fell. Never whined when I got hungry. I never shred a tear when I was bitten by the neighbor's dog. My parents, of course, always thought that there was something wrong with me. They thought that maybe there wasn't something right in the head. From the time I could start talking, I was sent to a counselor. Every time was the same route. He's just different. I could have told them that myself if they bothered to listen. Well, life went on, and I was sent to school. I tried to make friends, but it's hard to like people who have the brain power of a dull pencil. So I just kept to myself, and I did my work and avoided other people, judging them silently. I must admit, young people are much too cherry, too optimistic. Though I was still lonely, all humans have the urge for a connection with someone else. I knew I wouldn't find it with those crown-eating dopes, so I decided to make my own best friend. I wanted to imagine I wanted to imagine a bipedal cat. I love cats, and they usually love me, so why not? I did everything I could. I imagined the long tail, the feline eyes, even the fur pattern, but that's not what my brain spit out. After several minutes of hard thinking, standing in front of me was a tall, thin, pitch black man. He had long, lanky arms and legs. My head didn't even reach his hips. "What are you?" The first question came to mind. The thing appeared when I wanted a cat person, and I was a little disappointed. The thing didn't look at me. It was facing in the other direction. Its eyes probably focused on the wall of my bedroom, which it had to bend over slightly to fit in. "Hey, big black moron, I'm talking to you. Please don't take that out of context." I was angry. First, my imagination decided to make this monstrosity, and now it won't talk. At least turn around and look at me, and so it did. The creature turned around and looked at me. I was taken by surprise. It had almost featured. No nose, no ears, no mouth, only two glowing pearl white eyes. I wasn't afraid of, only curious. "Is this why you can't talk? You don't have a mouth?" I tilted my head to the side. The creature copied this moment. Maybe you can speak through your mind, telepathy. That's when I heard it. And cold, numbing chill ran down my spine. A deep voice grumbled in my mind. "If that's what you wish." It was terrifying, and I loved it. Right off the bat, I enjoyed his company. Most of the time, he just talked to me using his voice. Only when we were alone would he appear to me. For the longest time, he made my life bearable until the age of 10. I had dealt with all sorts of bullies in school. I was a loner, so I was easy to be picked out. Luckily, I was able to ignore my attackers, making them lose interest. However, in 4th grade, I met Derek. He was transferred to my school and immediately gathered a group of goons. They tortured everyone they could. Loved seeing people in pain, but Derek lusted for me the most. He tried over and over to get a reaction, but time and time again he failed. I enjoy seeing his frustration. However, one day he went a step too far. Usually when I get off from school, I follow the same path I travel several blocks down the road and then turned into the woods. My house was maybe 50 yards to the right, but I would take a left and left. My trail would lead me to a small stream that I would like to sit and draw until sundown. This day went different. I got off an easy day of 5th grade school and headed for my path. I was greeted by 5 kids all blocking my pathway. Hey there, Nick. Where are you going? Derek stood in front of the group. I stared at him with half-raised eyebrow. I didn't have time for this moron's crap. I tried to walk past him, but he reached out and shoved me back. No, I don't think so. Derek held a stupid smile on his face. You're not allowed to go in the woods anymore. Really? Right, why not? My dad owns the forest. Nobody is allowed inside. That means you. How retarded was this kid? Wow. Your dad owns a county-owned conservation easement? Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're full of shit. Derek drowned. You think you're so smart, don't you? Compared to you dumbasses, I'm Albert Einstein. Now get the hell out of my way. I shoved straight through the group and began my trek into the woods. Who's Albert Einstein? A whisper made me smile. Within a few minutes, I was next to the stream, propped myself up against a log, and pulled out my drawing book. I flipped through the pages until I found an empty one and began drawing. I became so absorbed in my drawing, I didn't hear the footstep come up behind me. Hey, asshole! I turned in time to see a rock coming sailing at my nose. I hit the ground, clutching my now bloody nose. Then 2 separate sets of arms plucked me up off the forest floor. I found myself face to face with Derek. So this is where you hide? He looked around. I think it's ours now. Are you kidding me? Yours? How do you? I was cut off by a solid punch to the gut. Derek leaned back a bit. Shut up when I'm talking. I struggled to catch my breath. My head dangling on my shoulders. I then felt something grip my hair and pull up until I was nose to nose with Derek. You're going to do everything I say from now on. Anything I tell you to do, you do. If I want you to do my homework, you do my homework. If I want your lunch, you give me your lunch. If I tell you to jump off a bridge, you do it. Understand? I said nothing. I didn't even look at him. I just stared past him, my eyes beginning to focus on a pitch-black, lanky figure. I felt a slap on my face. Are you listening to me? I smiled slowly. I'm sorry, instruction unclear. Please repeat. I felt several more slaps. I hate you. The feeling's mutual. Derek stared at me with rage. John, give me your knife. The 2 holding me up dropped me, making me stagger slightly. Then they proceeded to line up in a semicircle around me, forcing my back against a tree. Derek was sporting a pocket knife. I was very impressed. Are you really going to kill me? Derek smiled. Yes, I am. His goon seemed nervous but didn't move. Unless you bow down to me and call me the king of everything, I'll let you live. I snorted. How about I just call you the biggest, dumbest in the galaxy? I saw a flash of silver, sunlight glittering in my eyes, and then pain. Derek stepped back. His face was red, partially because of anger and partially because of the blood splatter. I turned my head and looked at my shoulder. Sticking out of it was the end of the pocket knife. Something changed in me, something I never felt before. Something permanent. I reached up one hand and slowly pulled out the knife. steady stream of blood gushed from my shoulder, but I ignored it. Dropped the knife on the ground, letting it clatter on the rock. The group looked at me and shot. I didn't look at them. I looked at the figure walking towards them. Why are you still standing up? You just got stabbed. Aren't you worried about it? I smiled and slowly pointed to the tall man behind Derek. I'd be more worried about that. I had never heard so much screaming in my life. I wondered. It was wonderful. I won't explain what happened in detail, but I was covered from head to toe in blood. My tall friend took care of most of them. I took care of Derek and one other. Somebody called the cops after hearing the scream. I heard the siren away. I then explained everything to them, from the first meeting to the group to their mess. Every detail I could remember, excluding my friend. I was then sent to a psychiatric installation. I wait with my friend for the right time to escape. It's been almost 9 years since the incident. I'm about to turn 19 and I can't wait to get out and celebrate. This is called Restroom. It's by RightHandLeftFoot. Tuesday night, 9:37 p.m. The shopping mall is almost completely empty. I'm standing in front of the food court, trying for the third time in a row to reach out to my ex-wife. She had my 8-year-old son with her and has been reaching out to my parole officer all day, telling him I have been drinking and using drugs again. I never should have married such a nasty, vindictive woman. After the first call with no answer, I lose my cool and decide to leave her a pleasant voicemail. You think this is fucking funny, huh? Playing with my life like this, making my son upset. I trip over a chair, landing hard on my right knee. I grunt, cursing under my breath, and gather myself back up again. Listen, you bitch. He's my son. I did most of the raising, while you were too busy being a stupid whore. I ended the call, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The last few shoppers heading out of the building for the night give me dirty looks. They don't have any idea what I'm going through. As I calm myself down, I notice that my phone only has 1% battery left. My only charger is sitting on top of my dresser at home. So now, it's probably a good idea to start heading out. The mall would be closing soon anywhere. Before that, I really have to take a piss. Men's restroom in the corner of the food court had a yellow janitor bucket outside of it, but the cleaning in progress sign was thrown in the corner. I decided to walk in, but the door was jammed. After pulling on it with all my strength, I managed to open it up just enough for me to squeeze myself through. The light is off. I nervously slide my hand across the wall, searching for a switch. Eventually, I find it, and what illuminates in front of me is one of the cleanest restrooms I've ever seen in my entire life. Reflective marble flooring, pink stalls, and a spotless mirror that extends halfway around the room. I take a 3-minute long piss in one of the most pristine urinals ever crafted. After I finish and the flush fades away, I notice the sound of somebody sniffling inside of one of the stores. Strange. I could have sworn the restroom was completely empty when I walked in. He's a grown man with messy gray hair, crouched down lower near the first toilet. He's sobbing to himself quietly. He's wearing a janitor's uniform, so I assume He's just underpaid worker who's been having a rough time. I'm not in the stall. Sir, are you okay? Is there something I can help you? Look at it, he said. The sound of feet. Look at what? The door to the star burst open in a sudden jolt of energy. And the man that I have been sulking, that I had seen sulking, now stands over me at the twice of the size as I thought he was. His eyes are twisted up in an unnerving way as a couple of tears slowly run down his face. I want you to look at him, he said, crying and pointing. What I saw next threw me back completely. Stuck inside the toilet facing me is a newborn baby, no more than a couple weeks old, with the side of its head completely dented in. I started stumbling backwards, shocked and horrified by what I experienced. The man grabs me by the collar of my shirt and slams me against the wall. Why won't it fit? He screams at me, crying harder than he was before. I can't fix it. It won't fit. No words come to mind. I feel out of breath. He won't let me go, so I push back with my feet and break free from his grip. As I run towards the door, he grabs me from behind, pulling me right back. How the fuck is he so strong? I set my sights back on him, preparing to start throwing punches. To my horror, my arms feel like they can't move. Something is holding me back. It feels like the air around me has become cold and heavy. The man no longer looks sad at all, but instead completely furious. His face is bright red, and when he starts speaking, he spits flies everywhere. Why are you making fun of me? He picks me up and throws me onto the floor. It knocks the wind out of me. I start wheezing and panicking as his hand tightens around my neck. I want everyone to stop. I want someone to fix it. He points toward the stall where the dead infant is again. You fix it. I don't say anything as I try to catch my breath again. His warped eyes are locked directly onto mine. Listen, okay? I stutter. Just let me go, please. He lifts me up off the ground and shoves me into the wall, or into the stall where the dead baby is. I refuse to look at it, feeling myself close to vomiting. I don't have time to figure out exactly what's going on here, but I know that I have to get the hell out of here. I don't hear anything for a while. It's been at least 5 minutes of complete silence coming from the outside of the stall. And I have not even touched or looked at the toilet once. After listening to nothing but my heart break for what felt like an eternity, I decided to unlock the bathroom door, slowly opening to see if he's there. There's nothing. The restroom is completely empty. I know what I have to do. So I slowly but deliberately make my way to the door again. I notice a small, thinner figure standing in the corner that I couldn't see earlier. It's an older woman, maybe in her mid-40s, holding her stomach and moaning. Attached to her arm is an IV, which is next to her on a set of wheels. Blood is running through her skirt. And right as she begins to open her mouth to say something, I run through the door and never look back. Because of what is in front of me, the massive janitor towers over me and begins reaching towards me again. Luckily, I have my strength back. Push myself into him harder than I thought I ever could. I fall right into him as the big menacing figure turns out to weigh as much as a piece of cardboard. I writhe in pain for a moment from hitting the ground so hard. Underneath my body lays a much smaller man. His head is crushed and bleeding everywhere. Stand up slowly and stare down at what now appeared to be a skinny old janitor clutching desperately onto a toilet plunger. I run out in the parking lot far into the night. I need to see my hand. Okay, this last one is called, we may do one more, I don't know. Hey, does anybody remember Yvette Thormes on YouTube? It's by Dreamiing. I have a lot of presence on social media, especially Twitter and Instagram. I grew my account a little bit. It just consisted of my life and selfies and vacation, sort of like a blog. One time, a post of me and my friend got on the Explore page, and it made me feel extra cocky. I was younger and a lot dumber at the time. I thought being popular was everything that mattered. Kind of like most high school sophomores. Then, oh, okay. That was when I met my friend Chance's friend. Her name was Yvette, and she had a significant following on her social media, about 40,000 on Instagram and 68,000 on YouTube. I'm not sure about her Twitter. I don't even know if she had one. Point being, she was starting to become a thing. Yvette Jamie Thormes was her full name. Since we both had a similar dream of becoming YouTube sensation, we hit it off pretty quickly. Sometimes we talk far into the night, and I would be almost like a zombie at school from the lack of sleep. Yvette went to a private all-girl school. The friend that had introduced me to her had went there before coming to mine, and that's how they knew each other. One day we decided to go meet for a movie. It was good fun finally meeting my best friend, if you could even call her that. We went for ice cream afterwards and headed back to her house. About a year and a half into our friendship, she FaceTimed me. She was freaking out about smiling. She was freaking out, but smiling so right. And she suddenly announced that she hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. We celebrated that night by both making brownies while FaceTiming and then planning a sleepover for that upcoming Saturday night. Her channel grew from there, and so did mine. I was only at 50,000, which was pretty good, but minuscule compared to her feats. She was verified quickly, and suddenly her channel exploded. She was the next beauty guru, it seemed. Her average views were anywhere between 40,000 and sometimes she even break 1,000,000 views. Her most popular video was her makeup do's and don'ts. It got about 5 million views. Videos became a daily occurrence, and we talked less. We still talked, of course, but she had to balance her YouTube career with school and a part-time job. So we didn't have much time for each other anymore. We weren't necessarily distant, I don't think. One night, however, I couldn't sleep. It was almost 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night, and my phone went off, indicating I had received a text indicating. When I checked it, it was Yvette. She asked if I could FaceTime. I didn't really deny her since we didn't really get to FaceTime much anymore. So I fixed my hair and blinked a couple times so I looked more away. And I picked up her call. She looked panicked. I didn't know what was wrong at first, but when I looked in her eyes, I could see that she was holding her phone in front of a open laptop screen with the brightness way up. I couldn't see much, but looked like a long, detailed email. Yvette said that she was afraid to continue her YouTube channel. I asked her what she was talking about since she was nearing 600K. She told me in these exact words, the government were to keep threatening me. She explained how ever since she was verified, it was like she's bound to a contract with her soul. Anonymous email flooded in claiming that if she did this task or that task, she would get a large flood of subscribers and get more popular. Yvette tried it and it worked. It was why she was growing so fast and getting so many views. She told me that YouTube was killing her, that it's all fake. It's all fake, Kenzie. It's all fake. She said. She began to cry. I think I'm going to get in trouble for telling you. Please just quit before you get popular. Please. She begged me for 10 minutes to stop uploading to make a new account and make them private. I told her I would, but asked her to elaborate. Here's the weird stuff she told me about. And since I don't know her that close, I just made bullet points. She said that one of her tasks was to perform a seance. She said it did work and nothing happened, but she soon exploded. She told me that in exchange for news outlets to talk about her age and success, she had to scratch some Latin phrase into her. She did it, but didn't know what it meant. She told me the emails were threatening her because she stopped doing what they said. Yvette said that since she told me she was going to die, I didn't believe her at first. It seemed so silly, right? Like she was recording and pranking me or something for her channel, but as I was mid-sentence, her FaceTime disconnected. I began to feel dizzy, like there were weights on my head crushing my skull and my brain. Instead of ending up back on our text, like what always happened when you crash or leave a call, I ended up on my main screen with all my contacts. Her name wasn't anywhere. It should have been right at the top. She was the person I most recently was texting. I checked my contacts right down to why. Her number was gone from my phone. I just thought it was a glitch, so I went to go back and entered her number in my phone. I had memorized it. I was in the middle of typing it, and then I forgot it. I know it was memorized. Thankfully, I written it down on a sticky note, so I typed it in. Told me that number was not registered. Maybe I typed it wrong. I tried it over and over again, and when the same response came up, I decided just to DM her on Instagram. I searched up her username. It was just Yvette.Jamie. However, nothing popped up. A couple other accounts did. Yvette James, Yvette Jamie, and some other. I checked all the related users and none were her. But then I realized I didn't know her username. I began to panic, threw my phone down, and hid under the covers. My head faded pretty quickly. I checked her YouTube, her Tumblr, everything, and she was just gone. She disappeared. Her accounts and her phone number didn't exist anymore. It seemed like I'd forgotten so much about her. I didn't sleep that night, but I did find out a pattern. All types of technology gave me headaches, unbearable crushing pains on the top of my head. As soon as I looked away from the laptop, phone, or TV screen, the aching pains would just go away. In a minute or two, I feel just fine. I also realized the more I use technology, the more I forget about her. What's her favorite ice cream? What's her birthday? I can't even remember her voice anymore. I went to school and nobody mentioned her. Not even though she had lots of friends at her school. Plus, she was starting to become somewhat internet famous. Shouldn't they be talking about how everything was just gone? Chance and I had math together, so I figured I'd mention Yvette to her. Chance looked at me blankly, raising her eyebrow, and asked me who Yvette was. She had an old brother who went to our school, and I asked him if his sister was doing okay. Maybe he remembered having a sister instead of her name. He laughed at me and told me he didn't have a sister. I'm writing this before I forget her completely, and I'm saving it so I never forget. I don't know what the hell happened to her, but I'm so afraid. Her own family doesn't even know she exists anymore. So please, does anyone here remember Yvette Thormes? That Twitter moment about her back in July and featured me. If you're reading this, Yvette insisted you may not remember her, but she was your best friend. Please tell me someone remembers her. I'm going to do one more. It's called I Think My Neighbor Is Stalking Me by Cheggtus. For starters, hello, my name is Olivia. I'm a 22-year-old. I'm fresh out of art school and I live in a small apartment on my own. We're almost on my own. I have 2 dogs. One named is Echo. He's a husky German Shepherd mix who seems to think he's way smarter than he actually is. The other is named Poppy. She's a Shibu in that, well, she isn't really the sharpest tool in the trade, if you ask me. Both of these dogs are amazing, and to my pleasure, quite intimidating. I mean, sure, if you actually knew me very well and met my dogs before, they wouldn't be as intimidating, but in the eyes of any stranger on the street who saw me walking these 2 lovely dogs, a stranger would know not to mess with me, or they'd get bit. I like it that way. Actually, I take my dogs everywhere with me for that reason alone, because I'm always afraid of possible dangers people, seeing as I suffer from extreme anxiety. Though, as I recently learned just an hour ago, my dog won't keep dangerous people away all the time. As I mentioned before, I live in an apartment. Living in an apartment has its ups and downs, but I'm content on staying here because my owner was kind enough to allow my dogs to stay. I moved to a small house or something, but I'm very broke considering the fact that I'm an artist who makes a living from selling art online. Even if the job is a bit risky with money sometimes, I'm still happy to be doing what I love. And that's all that matters to me. Anyway, taking into account that I have an apartment, I have a next door. I have next door neighbors next to me on both sides. We're only really separated by a single wall, too. I've lived in this apartment for ages, and I know people who live in this building very well, especially my neighbor who lives on my right. She's a sweet old lady named Miss Oliver, who has a few cats. She loves to bring me food, any food she makes, and sometimes she likes to invite me over for some tea and catching up. Overall, she's a lovely person that I adore living next to, but even if I love Miss Oliver, I can't say I completely enjoy my neighbors. Why, you may be wondering? Well, because just about an hour ago, I realized something about the neighbor who lives on my left. His name is Ben. Ben and I never really talked, but when we did end up speaking, it was always brisk and casual. He was 24, had shaggy auburn red hair, vibrant green eyes, round glasses, and freckles dotting the bridge of his nose. That's how he introduced himself to me. Actually, when I was moving in, Ben had stopped me before I could get in my doorway and pointed out how we both had freckles. It was odd, but a dorky cute kind of odd. Back then, he seemed normal. I actually thought he was cute. I even developed a small crush on Ben. It almost crazy to think about how fast things changed as time went on. I never considered myself attractive, but at the same time, who does think of themselves looking as good, thinking of themselves as good looking? I have silky blonde hair that reached my waist, fair skin that reminded me of Snow White, blue eyes as the color of the sky, and freckles dotting the bridge of my nose, just like Ben's. Even so, it does not matter if I didn't think I was very pretty, because it seemed that Ben had. I was walking home earlier tonight. Was the breeze ran through my hair that was pulled up neatly into a ponytail by a pastel purple scrunchie. I was wearing a pastel purple turtleneck sweater to keep me warm, and I was coming from the grocery store with both of my dogs at the side. Like I said before, I have a case of anxiety, and I was inwardly freaking out as I made my way home during the night. It wasn't like me to be out this late, but honestly, I couldn't help it since I had so many art commissions to finish, and I guess I just got carried away. So there you have it, an anxious female walking home alone in the dark with her two big dogs at her sides. Everything was just set up for something creepy to happen, and just as I suspected in my anxious mind, it did. Echo suddenly stopped in his tracks on the sidewalk and slowly turned around. The edges of Echo's mouth curled down into a snarl to show off his rows of sharp teeth as a low growl sounded out from the dog. Poppy sniffed the air before turning around as well and snarling at whatever was in the front of them. For a moment, my body shook and fell. I refused to turn around, and my feet were glued in one spot. I didn't want to face whatever was behind me. I didn't want to confront whoever was there. Even so, I knew I had to do so eventually for my own safety and for my dogs as well. I turned my head a bit. I turned my head, or turned on my heel and bit my lip anxiously as my eyes flickered around in search of the danger my two dogs were growling at. I was shaken. My mind was racing and my heart was pounding in my chest as a sick feeling of being watched finally kicked in. It took me only a minute before I saw a figure in the street under the street lamp. My eyes widened as I realized that not only was there someone following me, but the person following me was no other than my neighbor Ben. Why was he just standing there staring at me? As I realized it was Ben, my body began to relax as I let out a sigh. I bent down, put my hands on the dog's back before slushing them with a warm smile. Relax, puppers. It's just my husband. My hushed and soothed voice was cut off when I looked up to realize that Ben was gone. The anxiety took over. I didn't want to stay there long enough to know why Ben was just staring at me. I stood up, tugged at my dog's leashes, and booked it. That leads me to where I am now. You may be wondering, wow, Olivia, that's it? Well, dear reader, no, that's not it. I plan to investigate this further and see if he's really stalking me. I can't know for sure until I look into the subject further. I'll keep you updated when things happen, and I'll let you decide whether I'm being paranoid or not. But before you tell me it was a coincidence, keep this question in mind. Why did my dogs growl at him? Why didn't he say anything? If he's stalking me, how did he know I'd be there? Okay, this is called Three Drunk Gentlemen Agree on Killing Me Over My Sandwich. This is by ilgempo. This is a fresh story as it happened yesterday. So I was on my way back home from city center 9 to 10 p.m. and I had a sandwich with me. I have to take this bus to get home with maybe 16 stops until it's mine, which is not a busy stop. Usually only me and sometimes one more person gets off. I got on the bus at the back door, and the minute I sat down, this drunk guy comes to me and asks if I speak Hungarian. There are relatively a lot of beggars around here, so I'm not surprised. I say no. Lie. So I further conversation. He then starts speaking to me in English and said I could give him some money for food. I said, no, I haven't got any Hungarian currency on me right now. Again, lie because I just wanted to eat my damn sandwich. This guy then proceeds to signal me to give him a piece of my sandwich and almost breaks a piece of my sandwich. So I say to him, sorry, dude, no offense, but I just want to eat my sandwich. At first, he seemed pretty chill about it, but this is when it gets interesting. He sits back on a seat, 3 seats behind me, and I notice he's not alone. He's with 2 equally drunk gentlemen. The bus now closes the door and starts. And I'm eating my sandwich. I hear these guys talking shit about me in Hungarian, assuming I don't understand it. Shit like, man, this dickhead won't give me a piece of his sandwich. What a prick. Man, I was so bashed headed with a glass. I'm so angry. I hear them agree on getting down at my stop so they can beat me up. I never had to deal with a situation like this, so I start to think and come to the conclusion that my best option is to get down at my stop and run home, not on the usual route, like hell, because I can easily outrun a 330-year-old drunk guy. Meanwhile, because I'm focused on what to do if I don't touch my sandwich, maybe 1/4 of it remaining. This got them even angrier. Hey man, he didn't even finish his sandwich. I bet he gets home and throws it in the trash. And one of them says he murdered someone in his dream, and the other one said he dreamt the same thing too. This is not a coincidence. I'm there like, surely they aren't that barbaric asshole, but I was wrong. I heard them discussing my height, weight, and buffness and agreed that they can take me easy. 3-on-1. At this point, I'm sweating thinking about the option because my stop is coming up. We're heading into the suburb. The bus is starting to get empty. And I realized I can pretend that I get off somewhere and hope they get off. So I decided that at the last relative busy stop before my stop, I stood up, went to the door where 4 other people stood waiting to get off the bus. The bus stopped and I start to go towards the door, but stop when they can't see me. Surprise, surprise. They got off. The guy starts walking to my door calmly because there were other people at the stop, but when he got to my door, luckily it's closed. I checked it off. I checked if anyone got off with me at my stop though. I think this could have gone much more worse, and I was lucky to get the best case scenario. So crazy drunk guys on the bus, let's not meet again. P.S. I ate the rest of the sandwich at home. Okay, this is called ScarySunday Roommate. It's by VESUVIS. Okay, VESUVIUS Vitson. I'm so glad I'm out of a potentially dangerous situation where I ended up with a roommate that could have killed me without batting an eye. Prior to moving in, she had a strange attitude off the bat. Asked me to switch room randomly, but never showed up to. So I got fed up of waiting. And moved into my room. We shared a 2x2. When she eventually showed up, she tried to badger me for my room, arguing that she has a disability. Thought my room was bigger and complained about every single thing in the apartment. Some more tidbit. She's 39 years old, divorced, unemployed, and not in a school. In student housing. She also demanded that I wear no shoes and bring no pork into the apartment because she is Muslim. When I agreed, she looked astonished. She probably thought it would be a problem for me and a point of conflict that would make me desire to move. What followed in the coming days was the most unusual behavior I have ever witnessed. She threatened that if I had guessed that she would call the police and bragged about how often she would at her previous residence. She also would go on a long discriminatory rants about international students and refugees and those protected by DACA, and including full-blown racist remarks. She claimed she was evicted from her previous residence wrongfully and that the staff stole all her belongings. She started cyber stalking the accused staff, screenshotting photos of their family homes and even their cars. She was also stalking a student who had an injunction against her and frequently asked me if I knew him and how she could find him. She would wash shoes and pillows at 1 a.m., and whenever I had a guest over, she would chain message me, threatening to have them leave until we left. I documented all of her behavior from the beginning and had been back and forth with management about the issue. One night I moved a washcloth she had over the oven handle to side while the oven was in use because I thought it would be a fire hazard. She came banging on my door at 11 p.m. complaining that I touched her property. She also said she was clearing my mess. I asked what mess because I didn't make a mess because the pizza went directly from a tray into the oven straight from the fridge. She yelled, "Your mess," at me. It was bizarre. Just went back into my room. Once she said we should have used separate garbage bins, given we had to, so I said, sure. As soon as I linked mine, she started using it. Every night, exactly 10 p.m., she would disappear for an hour and then come back and be super awake and very talkative. It was when she would go on hour-long rants. One night, she came knocking to chat, and I pretended to be asleep just to avoid it. One day, she asked me if I knew who Jim Jones was. I had no idea who he was, so I said no. She replied he had the right idea. A few days later, I googled who Jim Jones was and was mortified. I checked all the new groceries I bought and found that she opened all the condiments and beverages and threw it all out. A few days ago, I went to do laundry in the common area. She had 2 pants flung on the washer, so I folded them and put them on the dryer. She came in at the same time and made a big stink saying, "Don't touch my stuff, girl." Not girl as in hey girl, girl as in slave girl or houseboy. She started screaming at me that I touched her property, and no matter how much I explained that I needed to use the washer, she then claimed she was using the washer, but had to go buy soap to use it. So I said, "Why can't I do a cycle while you're gone?" And she screamed even louder. She threatened to call 911 and did. So the police arrived. She spun some story that I striked her. Police cross-questioned her, and she fessed up that I didn't hit her, but rather she didn't like my tone. She started going off on the police, telling them to do their job and get rid of people like me, and one told her to shut up. She kept answering them back. The list goes on. She revealed so much about herself, though, through her weird nightly rants. Apparently, she was evicted 3 times. Even went from her own house because it was foreclosed after her divorce, and 2 other students' housing places. She is being sued by the student housing company of her most recent eviction, but since then she's filed for bankruptcy. Don't know how that works. She tried to appeal it, but the judge denied it. Police raided her apartment and confiscated every weapon she had for threatening staff at her previous residence. So I'm glad I was lucky enough to get switched to a whole new unit because this place is packed since school just resumed. She's a dangerous person. I have no idea why management didn't evict her, given the surplus of evidence of her unusual behaviors. Threats, police report, eviction, etc. Sounds like a winner. Okay. This is the most uncomfortable Uber ride ever by Cross B Breed P. So, for reference, I am a relatively attractive young woman, and I take Uber very regularly. Most drivers are fantastic, or at least average, but inoffensive. Not this particular ride, though. This dude was something else. First off, the rider didn't have a real name. His name on the Uber app was something like Long Live. I get in the car, he's playing Spanish Christian music. Not offensive, but I found it a weird choice for a person in customer service job in the southern USA. He immediately starts complimenting my looks, telling me how beautiful I am. I thank him because I didn't want to rebuff my driver. If I made him mad, he could kick me out. So the creepy compliment continued. He stared at me more than the road. Then he changes the music from Spanish curse music to extremely sexual rap. Explicit rap. Then he starts rapping, singing along to the sexual lyrics while staring at me. After singing along to a song or two, he asked me if it sounded good. I'm just staring out the window and pretending not to hear. This song is now an Ed Sheeran song. He keeps singing. I text my boyfriend to call me. He asks again more forcefully, "Don't you think I sound good? Don't you think I sound exactly like Ed?" Me, I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention. Him, what do you mean you weren't paying attention? I mean, do I or don't I? Ron Howard, he didn't. It was thankfully at this point my boyfriend called me. I answered very enthusiastically. The creep Uber driver frowned. My boyfriend stayed on the line until I got to my destination. I filed a complaint with Uber and rated 1 star. I recall Uber response being very mildly concerned yet non-committal. So long live, please. Let's never meet again. Okay, this is called Someone Was Definitely in My House. It's me, Christine. That's who it's by. I was maybe around 13, 14 years old at the time, and I recently granted the privilege of staying home alone. Every now and then, when I was home alone, I hear sounds coming from upstairs, and so I would instinctively call my mom. She then told me a story of how she used to hear things in her old house all the time and how it's just the house settling in. Fast forward to many instances of sounds later, I decided that the very next time I was going to be home alone, I was going to be completely silent and make as little noise as possible. Within the first half an hour, there was nothing, not a peep out of the entire house. I eventually got bored and felt safe, so I went to go grab the TV remote to watch some TV. But a few seconds later, before I grabbed the remote, I heard a huge crash upstairs and running footsteps. I was sure more than ever that someone was in the house. By now, there was plenty of consistent sounds coming from upstairs that it was a fact that someone was upstairs. 14-year-old me decided to hatch a quick plan. Being the skinny, most non-threatening little girl I was, I first grabbed a kitchen knife, then I grabbed a shoe and propped open the front door. And after And after a few moments of some deep breaths, I yelled out in the deepest voice I could, I know you are upstairs. I'm giving you a chance to leave with me without me calling the police, but I have propped the front door open. And I will be in the bathroom. Beware that I'm holding a knife, and if you refuse to leave, I will call the police. Sure enough, I walk into the bathroom with my knife, absolutely scared to death. Someone will open the door. I wait and wait until the one sound that to this day will always scare me for this reason. I heard the front door close. The shoe was moved. I quickly locked the door and turned on the alarm soon. I hope to never see this person or even hear this person again. Okay. This is called Prank Calling Stalker by Unwanted Commenter. I'm a first time poster here, but I thought you guys would want to read about my first stalker experience I had last month. For context, I'm a 20-year-old girl and I met my stalker, let's call him Luke, at my friend's birthday party, which he wasn't actually invited to, I later found out. He seems nice, so we started talking and I thought it was clear to him that we were just friends. We weren't flirting or anything, only talking about the parties and things like that, but then he started to put his fingers in my hole in the okay. Only talking about the party and then he like that things like that, but then he started putting his fingers in the holes of my jeans and trying to rub my legs. I pushed him away but continued to talk to him. At the end of the night, he asked me for my Snapchat username, which I reluctantly gave him. And within seconds of me rounding the corner from the house, he added me, and his profile looked like it just been created with no bitmoji, and his score was about 5. I added him back, and he started messaging me straight away, asking if I was home already, and even worse, asking if I would turn my Snap map on for him. This was a huge red flag, so I called him out on it, and he just read my messages without replying, so I blocked him. And I thought that would be it, but that night, about 2 a.m., I was finally ready for bed when I started getting no caller ID calls. I answered without speaking and just heard the person on the other end mashing the dial pad to annoy me. So I hung up and they just kept going. I switched my phone to airplane mode and finally fell asleep. When I woke up in the morning, I had 70 missed calls. It really freaked me out. But I pushed the calls out of my head and tried to go on with my day, but all throughout the day I kept getting no caller ID calls. And then when I got home from work, my apartment was completely trashed, so I called the cops. And they took a statement and asked my friend who had the party to be a witness that we met, but that's when I found out that no one even knew him. He came seemingly just to talk to me. I still have no idea how long he's been following me or anything like that, but the police just said there isn't much they can do without his full name. And the best I could give them was a description, and that was the last I've heard about it. I haven't had a prank call. I haven't had prank calls or anything that was suspicious since the day the police, so I'm thankful it's all stopped, but I'm still terrified something will happen to me again. Luke, let's not meet again. Okay, My first and last Reddit date by Pre-Rap Halite. During my freshman year of university, about 4 years ago, I was quite tired and lonely because I didn't make many friends, and my two major were pretty overwhelming. To pass time, I was browsing Reddit quite often. I even submitted an ad to find people to talk to. I got several responses, mostly from the US, though one was from my European country. It surprised me a bit, since not many people from there even know what Reddit is. But I was also glad I met someone local. This guy seemed cool. He worked for global IT firm and played the piano just like me. We talked, we exchanged a few emails, and it felt nice. Then one day he told me that if I passed my last exam, we will have a date. Quite pushy, right? I didn't want a date, to be honest, but I wanted to meet him. So when I left the exam hall and was sitting on the train home, I recalled his offer. He said he'd be in my hometown that day. First, I got home and tried to dress properly. I suddenly started to feel weak. I had a huge heartache and I had to rest for a moment. I called the guy and told him I'd be a bit late. Then he said something like, But don't you think that it'll be a date?" Well, he didn't say it. He rather screamed it. Okay. I promised I'd be there, so I arrived at the place and I saw him eating a dinner alone. Not nice to him, and he didn't even bother to ask me what I want. He was cold, just like this February day. Ironic and not nice at all. He simply said that I ruined his day by being 30 minutes late, and that there is not future for us. I realized how snobbish he was. Okay, I had to plug in so I would not die. Though being a relatively nice person, I tried to make this even better. I asked him if he wanted to go to the cinema, museum, church, whatever. He said no. He only wanted to get to the train station, remote train station that is not a main one. We started to walk towards the station. It was dark, wintry, and our path wasn't lit at all. My high heels were covered in mud, and I didn't really like it. We didn't talk at all because we were fed up with each other. So when we reached the station, I was relieved. I said goodbye, and then he kissed me on my forehead. What the hell? I felt a bit better, a bit because I had to get to the bus station on the other side of town. I had to take the same road we walked, and it gave me the chills. I was walking for a while when I hear a voice behind me. Hey, miss. I turned around and saw three guys wearing a hoodie. I started to walk faster and didn't answer. Hey, miss, you lost something. I heard again, but I didn't turn around. I didn't lose anything. No way. Miss, wait. I heard again. It's strange. No, I agree it was strange and difficult. High heels are not racing shoes by any means. They started to run after me. You don't even know how scared I was. At least I was very close to a better lit area. I saw a tram station and an older woman standing there. I rushed her and approached her. Then I saw the three men standing on the other side of the road. I know they were waiting for me. I called my friend who lived near, and he said he was in a dorm, but he'd get there as soon as possible. I was shaking, being watched by these three guys. I realized one was holding something glowing in the dark. Was it a knife? I don't think I want to know. My friend arrived. He is a quite big man. He tried to chase these guys, but they disappeared in the dark. He took me to the other train station building. We were sitting there for a while. I was trembling, crying. He was holding my hand all the time. Then he gave my then he gave me money for a cab, and I went home. My parents weren't happy about that. They said it was my fault. Was it really? I hope I'll never meet these guys or these men again. And you, my date? Well, I don't want to ruin your day again. Okay, this is called Stranded on a Highway Alone by Joki. Okay, so this could have been nothing, but something about it felt so off. Some backstory. So last night, my sister, who lived 3 hours away from me, had somewhat of an emergency and asked if I could come stay the night with her. I packed my bags right away and headed there at 9 p.m. As I was about an hour away from my apartment, I realized that my car wasn't going to make it. The temp gauge was rising, and I didn't want to risk it overheating in the middle of nowhere. So I turned around, and when I am about 15 minutes from my home, my car overheats. At this point, it's about 11:30 p.m. I pulled off an exit and waited for it to cool down, then got back on the highway, but it did it again. So I pulled off into the side of the highway. As I'm waiting for it to cool down, I tried to start again and it wouldn't start at all. I'm a 23-year-old female, all alone, new to town, and my boyfriend was out of town, so I start to panic a little because I read too many damn Reddit stories. I managed to calm down and called my stepdad to let him know where I was and that I was going to call a tow truck. As I was on the phone with him, two cars pull off the highway right in front of me, and then one right behind me. My first thought was they were going to help me or that they were all traveling together and needed to stop. But it was really weird to me that they pulled off at the same spot as I did, with one pulling behind me. They all sat in their cars for what felt like forever, but was probably around 3 minutes. Then a man got out of the one of the cars in front of me, and started walking towards my car. He walked to the passenger side, stopped for 1 second, and then walked to the car behind me. This whole time, I'm describing what he looks like to my stepdad just in case He was in the car for a while and walked back towards my car. As he's passing my window, he hit it with his knuckle, knocking once as he kept walking. Then sat there for a while and then all left at once. I'm realizing as I'm typing this that it doesn't seem that weird, but being alone on the highway with 3 cars pulled off in front of you and behind you is a suffocating feeling. I really don't understand why he felt the need to knock on my window as he was walking by. I'm not going to lie, it made me cry because it was just so bizarre. I'm hoping they were just pulled off to talk together. I was just overreacting, but let's not meet. Okay, this one is called Boyfriend Turned Stalker by Uncreative613. So this happened a couple years ago when I was a sophomore in high school. I had this boyfriend named Fisher. He wasn't the most attractive, but he was nice, so we started talking and eventually decided to become a couple. Things started off normally as they usually do, but soon as I started to become overwhelmed by his attention, he never wanted me to see my best friend or do anything that didn't involve him. Eventually, he would want to talk on the phone as soon as we parted for the night and wouldn't let me go to bed. One night, I couldn't take it and I told him that I was going to bed. Then I hung up. About a half hour later, I hear a knock at my basement door. I moved the curtains a little and see, and he's standing out there. He refused to leave until I let him in. This went on for months and months. He would stalk me at work and home, and if I didn't answer, he'd call my parents and ask where I was and what I was doing. At one point, I tried to break up with him, and he started freaking out and saying he was going to kill himself and it would be my fault. I was afraid to leave him and afraid to go anywhere, thinking he would follow me. One of the times he showed up in the middle of the night, I let him in, hoping I could convince him to leave. Wrong move. He went into my brother's room and picked up his butterfly knife and began playing with it. I was getting a little freaked out by then, so I asked him to leave. As I went to walk away, he grabbed my arm really tight, and wrenched me back towards him while still holding the knife. I hit him in the face and started screaming at him to get out of my house. The next day, he went on like nothing had happened. I broke up with him over the phone that day. That wasn't the end, though. A couple days later, I was hanging out with a guy friend, and my ex showed up and tried to talk to me. My guy friend knew everything that had happened, so he offered. My guy friend knew everything that has happened, so he offered his house for a place to avoid my ex. We quickly left and walked there, only to realize my ex has followed us. We went inside and looked out the window to see my ex sitting on his front steps. I then got a call from my mom saying my ex has told her I was in danger and was going into a strange man's house. When I told her the truth, she called him back and flipped out on him. He still wouldn't leave. He started yelling at us through the window that he wouldn't leave unless I came out and hugged him. He kept saying, it's one little hug and you owe me this. We finally got him to leave by threatening of calling the police. Still not the end. The last main event with him was finding out he had been stealing my dirty socks and kept keeping them for his fetish. He offered them and my hoodie I had left at his place back. He said I could only get them if I came alone. I told him no way that was happening and that I was done with him for good. We still went to the same high school, so I saw him for years, but we didn't have any interaction after that, so creepy fetish boyfriend let not meet again. Okay, this is called We Were Stalked and Stopped by a Fake Cop. This is by V underscore Morgulius 13. So this happened about 6 years ago. My best friend had moved a couple towns over, and with our busy work schedules, we couldn't hang out as much. We made a habit of getting together at least once a week and going on a hike just shoot the shit and catch up. So that day rolls around, and we decide to go to a trail in a neighboring town. The town was considered a very wealthy area and therefore very safe. This is important because it was it's the main reason why our guard was low, and probably why we didn't see the apparent red flags of the situation. In order to get to the trail, you had to drive through a park entrance. This was the only way in or out. As you drive through the entrance, there is a parking lot on the right side. You keep driving, there is a baseball field to the left. About 100 yards further, there is a small parking lot, which is where we parked. From the parked car to the start of the trail was about a 50-yard walk. There was a couple cars parked there, and it was probably around 5 p.m. It was summertime, so we weren't worried about getting dark, it getting dark anytime soon. But of course, we lost track of time and decided to head back once it had gotten pretty dark. I just want to note that nothing had felt strange during this hike. I never felt uneasy or felt like I was being watched or anything like that. Even as we were hiking out of the woods in complete darkness, we finally made it to the entrance of the trail. I looked over to see my friend's car is the only one left in the entire lot. We start making our way towards the car, and I hear a very light rustling near some trees a couple of feet to the left of us. My friend and I were mid conversation. I knew he hadn't heard it because he kept talking about, but I kept looking over my shoulder as we got further from the trees. We were still about halfway to the car when I saw a silhouette hide quickly behind a tree. At this point, I looked at my friend, who was still unaware that I had heard and just seen something. And I said in the calmest voice possible, "Hey man, don't freak out, but someone is in that bush over there looking at us. Let's run to your car on 3. Believe me, I was scared shitless, but I didn't want whoever that was to realize that we were aware that they were there." As I counted to 3, our walk turned into a power and then full on sprint. When this thing comes out of from behind the tree, and I hear the footsteps of someone running right at us. To this day, I don't know why we stopped running and turned around to face this stranger, but this man dressed in all black clothes pulls out a flashlight and points it at our faces. He comes closer very cautiously as we were gonna do something to him. And when he's about arm's length away, he tells us he's a cop. First red flag was the hiding in the bushes part, watching us for I don't know how long. Second red flag was the fact that not once did he announce himself as a cop until he got real close. At this point, we were right next to my friend's car in an empty parking lot. Not a single police car or any other car in sight. Not only that, but this guy was wearing a black vest and black slacks and had no type of badge or anything that would indicate he was a police officer. He pulls out a small notepad and asks for a name, which we give him. I know how stupid that was, believe me. At this point, I don't know if we're being fucked with by some random guy or if this is an actual cop, because he then tells us to step away from the car and that he's going to check it for drugs. We let him search the car. My friend smokes cigarettes, and the guy made a deal about the butts in the ashtray. Me and my friend are sitting there on the curb waiting for this guy to finish searching the car. Not gonna lie, at this point it seemed like a big joke, and we're almost want to laugh in this guy's face. It went from being creepy as all hell to feeling annoyed that my time was being wasted. Anyway, this guy gets out of the car, and I take off my shoe to get a couple pebbles out of it from the height early, and this man rushes at me with his flashlight and said, "Why are you doing that? What's in your shoe?" I stand up immediately with my shoe in my hand and tell him to relax. It's just pebbles. Now what he did next made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I'm getting chills just playing it in my mind as I write there. To recap, this guy was wearing a black shirt with black vest and black flat with black shoes. Nothing else. No badge, no gun, no walkie-talkie or radio. He turns around very quick away from me, takes a couple steps, and pretends to call for backup on the radio the cops have attached to their collars. Me and my friend exchanged looks, and we're both thinking, we need to get the hell out of here. He insists that he had called a canine unit to come and sniff out of the car for drugs. At this point, we were arguing with this guy and telling him how he's wasting everyone's time and everything is so unnecessary. My friend lights a cigarette, and we sat there for what must have been at least 20 minutes just looking at each other. Of course, the K9 unit never shows up. The man walks a few feet further away from us and again pretends to be on the radio with someone. He comes back and tells us the other officer is busy and we can leave. In my head, I'm thinking, what the fuck is going on? This is the most absolutely bizarre situation I've ever been in. We slowly get in the car, and I never take my eyes off this guy until we pulled out and drive away. He just stood there in the empty parking lot looking at his notepad. On our way out, we scanned the other lot in the park, not a single car in sight. By the end of all of it, all my friend and I were more annoyed about the whole situation than creeped out. But we always thought, what if it wasn't the two of us that he had stopped? Maybe he sized us up and realized he couldn't take both of us, so he played the role so he wouldn't give himself away. We also thought maybe he was a working cop on a crappy night shift park patrol, but it was just too bizarre for it to be true. But anyway, creepy ass fake cop from the hiking trail. Let's not meet again. Okay, stalker caused me to drop out of school. This is by Solveta. After I graduated high school, I went to a community college where my best friend at the time and her boyfriend also attended, along with a lot of their friends who I became acquainted with as well. Fast forward to Halloween of 2010, we took my best friend's little sister and brother out to trick-or-treating, where her boyfriend ended up joining us. We were towards the end of the route when one of their friends from college ended up joining us, which I didn't think anything about it at the time, other than he gave me weird vibes. Should have been my first clue. After we were done trick-or-treating, we brought the kids home to go to bed, but my friends wanted to go out and do something to keep the night going. Now, since it was Halloween and in a college town, there's an excuse to party, just like any other day. They decided on going downtown, but I declined since I wasn't feeling well, which was true, but I wasn't also the only one with a car, and I didn't want to be the chauffeur, and went home. A few hours later, I was in bed reading a book. I still live with my mom and brother, and my phone lit up from a number I didn't recognize. It was the friend that joined us while trick-or-treating. He explained that he got my number from my best friend's boyfriend, and he was concerned that I didn't feel well and insisted on bringing me soup to feel better. Some sort of red flag went off in my head, and I didn't want this guy to know where I live, so I said no. My mom's taking care of it, but thank you anyway. Got a little pushy, but eventually backed down. Proceeded to send me any texts about how much fun he had when we were out and blah blah blah. I later found out that he billed going downtown too because he only wanted to go with me. He then added me to Facebook, went through all my pictures and liked all of them. Second red flag. Being a naive 18-year-old I just thought maybe he was being overly friendly and it's just a little weird. So I didn't avoid him or anything at school. Since we hung out with the same people one day when we were when we didn't have school. He texted me asking me if I wanted to go lunch. I should have said no, and I accepted, thinking I was getting a free meal out of the deal. Since he insisted on paying, and it would be a quick visit. We met at the restaurant, sat down, and talked and ate. It was super awkward, and I stupidly mentioned I wanted to go to the mall to get some stuff. He insisted on driving me there, and that his mom can move to the back seat. Wait, what? Apparently, he drove his mom minivan, brought her with him, and left her in the car while we went on our date. I kept saying that she should come in and join us. He got really weird about it and said she was napping and she didn't mind waiting. That's very odd. Very, very odd. At that point, I started getting very uncomfortable. Luckily, we were done with our food, and I said I needed to leave. Thanked him for the food and got up to go. He kept saying he'll meet me at the mall, and I was put in what I felt was a weird position, and I'm not a sort of person, so I reluctantly said okay. We meet at the large store connected to the mall. I mentioned how I was here to look for a new scarf. He started browning. He picked out the most expensive one he could find, bought it for me, and basically almost threatened me not to return it. It was then I wanted to be left alone, so I said thank you. I was going to go home now. He insisted on walking me outside to my car where we parked on opposite ends of the mall. His mom was still in the van. I kept saying it was okay. I was fine. He was a big guy, and even simply walking caused him to break out in a sweat. But he wouldn't take no for an answer, so away we went. We passed by another and took a quick peek inside. There was a pair of boots that I very quickly and passion mentioned they were cute, but I don't know if I'd wear them. He bought them for me and did the same thing, not to return them because they were gifts, and you don't return gifts. Like, dude, then what are gift receipts for? At that point, I got a little firm and told him I wanted time alone, so please don't walk me out to my car. He accepted and went on his merry way, clearly happy that he made those purchases to show me he liked me. I got to my car, waited for probably 20 minutes. I knew what his van looked like at this point. Kept my eyes out for it in case he was going to follow me, but didn't see anything. I actually ended up going back to the mall and returned the boots, scarf. In reality, I didn't want either of them, and I was way too uncomfortable accepting those gifts from a strange person. I don't like owning people, and I had a feeling he was going to use that as some sort of leverage to get something from me. I took the long way home to make sure I wasn't being followed. I told my mom what happened. She was concerned and thought it was strange as well. Since he and I didn't really know each other and it seemed like a weird act of desperation, I got a text from him a few hours saying he hoped I liked his gift. I responded that I returned them because I wasn't comfortable with it and he lost it. My phone kept lighting up with tons of texts. Was before it was easy to block someone, and I didn't know how to. The old flip phone. He was livid, and he was livid that I did such a disrespectful thing. I should be thankful he got those things for me. So I got angry and told him I didn't ask him for the gift. He basically threatened me to keep them, and he didn't take no for an answer when I told him I didn't want them. So essentially, he was the one who disrespected me. He backed down a lot then. I told him to stop texting me and leave me alone. I got a few more texts but eventually he stopped. It was weird at school because I kind of avoided being around my friends when I knew he was there. Still, I hung out with some of them alone, like my best friend, but when I knew a friend gathering was going on, I wouldn't go. They understood. Now, this is where I got stupid. I'm a very, very compassionate person, and 9 out of 10 times I felt horrible for when I was mean to someone. Even in the instant I end up texting the creeper one night apologizing for how rude I was to him. He said he understood where I was coming from, and we had a normal conversation for a little bit till I at fell asleep at around 11 p.m. I know this because I woke up at 2 and looked at my phone and saw a black text I sent him was a little before 11 thinking I was tired. After I fell asleep, he sent me one text. Saw I didn't respond, text again. Saw I didn't respond, kept texting. We're talking on the verge of like 30 to 40 texts here. Called me from his cell phone about 10 times. Called me from another number about 15 times because he thought I was ignoring him. Then he sent one last threatening message. If you don't respond within a half hour, I'm calling the police. I happened to wake up at 2 a.m., which was an hour after he sent that text. I flipped the fuck out, texting him that I fell asleep and he would better not have called the police. You want to know why he called the police? Because he interrupted me saying I was tired and I was tired of living. He thought I killed myself. Never mind that. It was, basically bedtime when he and I were talking. So, yes, me killing myself is the most logical route to take here. I ran into my mom's room and told her what happened. She goes, for crying out loud, they have better things to do with their time than they aren't coming to check on it. Go back in my room, which looked out there. I looked out, see a car parked on the street, 2 flashlights walking up the driveway. I opened it. Pretty sure they saw the look on my face and told them everything. You Sally? Yep. You know why we're here? Yep. So what happened? I fell asleep. The police understood and actually called the creep back and told him to leave me the fuck alone. Just as I was texting him to leave me alone, he then had the gall to ask for my address again. He had done this numerous times. To come over and apologize to me and that he loved me. I told him he doesn't even know me and he had absolutely no reason to be in love with me. His reason was that how he worked. He fell in love first and then decided if it was the right person. That dude was loony. This put a really big strain on my friendship at college. His story was much more twisted and painted me as the bad guy. I ended up making a lot of enemies, even with my best friend, because he labeled me as a whore. There was another guy interested in me as well among those friends. But he was much less assertive and I didn't give him the time of day. And everyone believed him. Even though at the time I was still a virgin. I had to drop out of school because that circle of friends was so big, and whatever the creep saw me, he would get irrational, angry, and his friend had to physically hold him back, which was a lot of people because he was massive. I since cut contact with all of them and ended up going to a different school that I loved so much and in a much better place without all of them in my life. So creep from school, I hope I never have to see you again. Okay, that's all for today. I'll be back on Sunday at I think it's like 4 something. Let me see. Let's see. Sunday. Sometime it's I think like 4:40 or something in the morning. But I'll be back Sunday. So we'll cover something and then do more stories. So I hope everyone has a great Friday. Enjoy their Friday. So I will see you on Sunday.